Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. My name is Dr. Zora, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the old but gold topic of aim. We hear it all the time, everyone wants to have good aim, and there are tons of guides that have been made on how to improve your aim, such as the ones we have on our channel. However, there is a topic of aim that has been highly neglected, and that is consistency. Many players have suffered from their aim being incredibly inconsistent and don't know why. Well, if this is you, that all ends today. This video is going to go through the top reasons why your aim is inconsistent and how you can easily fix it and play at your best in every game of Valorant you play. Without further ado, let's get into the video. We're going to start things off with our question of the day: which weapon do you like to use the most in Valorant? Weaponry can be a big factor in your aim and consistency, which is an area we're going to delve into. Some players feel more comfortable on one gun, while others feel more comfortable with something else. Such comfort can drastically change the way that you aim, so we're curious which weapons you guys like the most. Starting things off, one of the reasons your aim can be inconsistent is because of inconsistent positioning. There are multiple areas that you could be playing in Valorant, and they can drastically affect how comfortable you are with your aim and plays. A lot of players we see with inconsistent aim don't really have certain positions that they always go for. For example, on attack side of bind, they jump between holding an angle at B long or B short, then suddenly try to aggressively push onto another area such as A short or shower. From there, they try to switch things around where they start going aggressive on the B site and then try to lurk onto A or passively hold onto A. All of these scenarios, while similar in some aspects, are played in entirely different ways. There's different angles to check, the choke points are narrower or wider, there's many different factors that go into an area, and if you aren't used to considering those specific factors, you're going to feel less comfortable trying to take control of that area and will have a more difficult time of winning the aim duel. Instead, we recommend picking one or two positions on each map and sticking to it. For example, if you feel good entering on B long when your team tries to take B, then you should do that on every single round that your team goes to B. Likewise, if you feel good about being the second man to push on A short, then you should try to get into this position during all of your team's pushes. By doing this, you're getting repetitions on making the same play over and over again. You know what to expect and what you need to do to fulfill your role. This is done to a similar but more general extent on the defender side. For example, if you are most comfortable playing A, you should try to play A as much as you can. Taking it a step further, you should pick a specific choke point and hold that choke point every single time. Feeling good with showers, then defend that every single round like your life depends on it. A short calling your name, then get into A short and defend it like your heart depends on it. This consistent positioning will help you feel comfortable with where you are on the map. After practicing those positions, you'll have a general idea of how that position is played out, like what abilities you want to use to push, or what abilities enemies might like to use to push you. Speaking of consistent positioning, this applies outside of the game as well. This may sound silly at first, but your desk and chair setup can be a monumental factor in how consistent your aim is. There are multiple areas at play here, including your mouse position, monitor position, chair position, and mousepad position. Making sure that all of your equipment is in the same spot every time you play will make sure that your body is also in the same position every time that you play. Again, this brings familiarity and comfort, which will help make sure that you're aiming consistently every time. If even one piece of equipment is off, that could throw off your entire aim. For example, if your mousepad is slightly higher than normal, this will likely result in you putting your mouse higher, which then changes your shoulder and elbow position to somewhere that your body hasn't been trained and oriented to. This then makes it much harder for you to aim and you're going to feel off. If you have doubts about this, we suggest trying it yourself in a more extreme manner. Play in your typical position and then try to play with your chair further back where your arms are now perfectly straight rather than being bent to a certain degree. You'll likely notice that the familiarity and comfort we mentioned is now gone and you're having more trouble aiming. So make sure that your setup is positioned the exact same way every time you play, and you're going to notice improvement in your aim consistency. One thing we want to highlight is that you want to find what is most comfortable for you. This may be having perfect posture where your elbows are bent to 90 degrees and your back is straight, but it could also be a slouch posture where your chair is on an incline. Whatever it is, find it and stick to it. Going right along here, a big reason we found players that have inconsistent aim is their mental health. This is an area that many players neglect, but it is so important if you want to play well every time you play Valorant. Something as simple as having a poor sleep schedule could hugely affect your aim. You're not sleeping well, your body isn't getting the rest that you need, and therefore you're fatigued and end up having trouble aiming consistently when you play. Or perhaps you had a rough day and aren't really in a good mental state to play Valorant, but you get into the game anyway, play poorly, and then get tilted further and cause even more inconsistencies. Mental health is an important aspect to consider for not only Valorant, but for your, well, overall health. So make sure you take care of yourself, get some good sleep, go out and enjoy the weather, hang out with your friends, play sports, exercise, yoga, whatever it is that helps you relax and have a positive mindset, go ahead and do it. You'll find that when your mental health is in check, your aim will be much better. Again, you may be questioning how effective this is, but we're confident that you will get results not only in Valorant, but in your overall life as well. Moving on, a big reason that players have inconsistent aim is because they have an inconsistent playing schedule. This can be the case for several players. For most of us, we aren't fully committed to Valorant. We have days where we can play for hours on end, and then we have days where we can't play at all. We get it, there are other things in life besides Valorant. However, if you want to play at your best and maintain consistent aim for when you do have the time to grind out, then you're going to need to have a consistent schedule. It's difficult to maintain your aim when you're only playing 2 or 3 times a week, especially if they're spread out throughout the week. Being able to play daily would be best, but even if you can't do that, even playing every other day can be a big help. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy either. The goal is to maintain aim, not to grind out on days where you can't afford to do so. So on other off days, try to find a time slot where you can fit in 30 minutes of Valorant. This could be an unrated game or even just playing deathmatch or going into the practice range. By playing daily or bi-daily, you ensure that you're doing some sort of practice and maintaining that muscle memory. There are 4 different types of agents in Valorant: duelists, initiators, controllers, and sentinels. Each agent type has a different type of playstyle to optimally use that agent's abilities. For example, duelists are good at getting into enemy faces and getting picks, so as such, you want to be aggressive and the first player in when hitting a site. On the other spectrum, if you're playing a sentinel such as Killjoy and Cypher, you want to play practically the complete opposite. If you get killed earlier, your abilities go down and your impact is greatly deteriorated. In this regard, especially if you're on defense, you want to be more passive and hold off on making moves. Let the enemies come to you, and when they fall into your setup, that's when you go in for the fight. You can see how different agents can call for completely different playstyles, and if you're used to one specific playstyle and not another, that can create inconsistencies with your aim based on what agent you're using. If you are able to pick one specific agent to main and focus on, that will help improve your consistency as you get used to their abilities, but staying within the same agent type will also be relatively similar to one another and easy to adapt into. Getting into a common area that people don't tend to think about, sticking with one's sensitivity. If you watch any of TenZ's latest streams, you may see that he constantly changes his sensitivity quite often, and because of how popular he is, many players are trying to copy him and do this as well. Or a common thing that players will do when their aim is feeling off or they're underperforming is that they'll try to change sensitivities in hopes that that would fix the problem. The issue that tends to occur when doing this though is it messes up your muscle memory. You've been practicing with one sensitivity and learning it, but then you go into a completely different sensitivity that you're not used to, which results in you over aiming or under aiming compared to usual and actually performing even worse. TenZ specifically is an exception because he's been playing competitive FPS for multiple years, accumulating well over 10,000 hours in the genre. His game sense, knowledge, and extensive practice on various sensitivities is what allows him to perform well regardless of his sensitivity. Most players don't have this level of experience and practice, and therefore we don't recommend trying to change sensitivities often like TenZ. You'll notice the majority of the other pros do not touch their sensitivity at all. Stick to one sensitivity and work on developing that muscle memory that will help you much more in the long run to improve your aim and decrease the chance of you having an off day. This next tip is simple but heavily overlooked, and that is having a warm-up routine. This doesn't have to be anything overly complicated, but spending even a few minutes doing an aim drill can really help to prepare you when you get into your games. We recommend warming up in either deathmatch or the practice range as they're the simplest to do. There aren't too many specifics in terms of how to properly warm up, as long as you're doing some sort of aiming with it. You can either let loose and just go in for as many aim duels as you can in deathmatch, or casually aim in practice range. These are just a few options, but you can also do certain aim drills to warm up that you need to work on, such as jiggle peeking or strafe shooting. Point being, make sure you warm up your aim to prevent being cold in your matches, and you'll instantly notice an increase in your consistency throughout your games. We have 2 more tips for you, and this is one that people love to talk about, but can actually be quite detrimental to your play. The 2 most popular rifles in the game are the Phantom and Vandal, and we see players all the time that switch between the 2 during their games. You may have seen videos that go on about the debate between the Phantom and the Vandal. This may have led you to constantly be thinking about which weapon is better, and honestly, it's a difficult argument because both weapons are so close to one another. Riot has done this on purpose though. Each of the 2 rifles are similar in strength but serve different purposes and playstyles. Many players like to switch between the Phantom and Vandal based on how they're feeling on a given day, or what position you plan to play. But for those who are finding that their aim is inconsistent, you should pick a rifle that feels most comfortable for you and stick with it throughout. The Phantom and Vandal have different firing rates, different clip sizes, and a different spray pattern amongst other things. If you're not as used to one compared to the other, then you'll find yourself aiming much worse than the rifle that you don't normally play. Likewise, if you keep switching between the two rifles, you won't be able to fully master one and develop that consistency that you're looking for. Stick to one rifle that you feel best with and develop your skills with that rifle first before moving on. We found that this has helped several of our players develop the consistency you need to aim well by doing this. Last but not least, if your aim still feels inconsistent with the tips we said so far, then having a detailed aim routine is really going to be beneficial to you. A lot of people misconceive Valorant as a game where you need to have godlike flicks and reactions to dominate, and while that is most certainly important and helps you make those flashy Reddit-worthy plays, most of Valorant is actually the complete opposite when you take a deeper look at things, using multiple other simple techniques such as crosshair placement, jiggle peeking, wide swinging, strafe shooting, and I hate to say this, but running and gunning is a technique in Valorant as well. You may be really good at performing one aiming technique, but then really bad at performing another. What ends up happening there is that you get into a game where you're using the aiming technique that you need for the right situation, but then when you get into a situation where you need to use something else, then you find your aim being much more off. This may require some VOD reviewing, but we recommend identifying the specific techniques that you don't feel comfortable with and putting that into an aim routine that you do regularly. For example, if you find your tracking is really off, then head into the training range and work on tracing the heads of the bots. If you find your shoulder peak needs some work, then work on doing this multiple times in the range to get it down pat. If you're really short on time, this could also be done as a replacement to the warm-up routine as you're still working on your aim in both scenarios, although this routine will be much more specific. By improving the areas of your aim that are weak, you'll be prepared to shoot down your enemies regardless of what situation you run into. Alright, so which weapon do you like to use the most in Valorant? Make sure to leave a comment below if you haven't already. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. I'm Dr. Zora, and good luck out there.